Good afternoon, everyone. This is Mike Feldbauer from the Flagler County Drug Court Foundation talking to you from Flagler Voice Podcast Studios here in Palm Coast. I have some special guests in the studio today that I'll introduce to you shortly, and we'll be right back. Okay, we're back with you. Glad to have you on board, everybody. And my guests in the studio today come from I think a little different group than we've had so far, but we're really pleased to have. And I met them about a year ago, October, when the Flood County Drug Court Foundation was having its ride for recovery. And they're a group of motorcyclists that have a special way of working in our community. The name of their group is Soul Patrol. Might give you a little indication. And I have Wrong Way with me, and I have Flash with me. So, gentlemen, how are we doing today? Flash, I got you up on the screen, so
I'm
why don't we
doing great.
introduce yourself first
Hi,
there?
I'm Flash, Soul Patrol, Vice President of Palm Coast Chapter. And I actually live in Ormond Beach, but our chapter is
We won't hold that again, yeah?
in. So our clubhouse is in Bunnell. And so it's great to be a part of Soul Patrol, been a part of it for 8 years.
Excellent, excellent. Well, we'll get back and we'll dig a little deeper in how you got involved with it in just a minute. And let me introduce Wrong Way.
Hey,
And
so my name's wrong. I go by Wrong Way, um, president of the Palm Coast chapter here of Soul Patrol Ministry, and just glad to be here. Glad to be able to share a little bit about what we do and how we like to work with the community. I'd say I've been about a little bit less than a year, maybe a year and a half less than Flash, as part of the club, and it's been a blessing since day one. Absolutely.
that's great. Before we came on the air, you both told me that you've moved here to our Sunshine State from the state of Washington.
That's correct.
Was that just a long motorcycle ride? You ran out of gas when you got here and didn't want to
Y-
go back?
No, you know what? Like I was probably like a lot of people where my family and I came down here on vacation to the magical kingdom down there, and I remember specifically walking out of the hotel room one night and it was like 10:30 at night and it was warm. And I was like, what is this all about? Like, it's been a long time since I've experienced this because Washington is beautiful, but it's also, I mean, it's got a very beautiful seasons and you get a nice summer and spring and fall, but it's chilly, at times. And so when I walked out, it was September and it was warm outside. And I was like, oh my gosh. And I remember specifically my wife saying, we should probably move down here. And I was like, yeah, no way. We've got the ministry in Washington that we're part of, Soul Patrol. And wouldn't you know, within 6 months, we
you were
were
you
we
were
were
here.
down here. Yeah. So,
I had a gentleman that we recorded his podcast yesterday, and he was from the western part of upstate New York.
mhm,
The frozen West. That
mhm,
they should put a border up in Canada from keeping it into. And he basically said the same thing. He said, I was applying for a job down here. I came down, I got off the plane. It was absolutely gorgeous.
mhm.
And it was late fall, early winters, and it was just, he said, great temperature, beautiful out here.
Mhm.
And I told my wife, I said, this is the place to be.
Right.
He said, had I come down here and interviewed in July or August, I,
Yeah.
I might have changed my mind. So we
You
go
know,
from there.
Yeah.
I think the most amazing piece of the whole thing, though, was moving down here. I think from my family is probably one of the best things we've ever done. For the ministry, it's been fantastic. But what was really amazing to see how God just opened every door along the way. Anytime something came up that we thought where the door was going to shut or there'd be an obstacle, kicked right through it. It was incredible, from jobs to getting down here to our home. We're blessed, and it's just really cool to see how all that works. God doesn't stop working, even when we are questioning that.
No, I agree with you. The problem is sometimes we don't listen.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
Where we're saying, hey, I'm going to do that. And
Yeah.
he's saying, not now.
Yep.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe later,
Yep.
not now. We rush into it. He will
Yeah.
come back and help us even when we make those mistakes.
Right.
But
Mm-hmm.
It's that learning to listen that we really all have to
Correct.
work on a little bit. So we
Yes.
go from there. So,
And it was kind of funny how when I come down after he moved down, and I talked to my wife and said, hey, we want to go. I want to see Florida. I've never been here. And so our son-in-law, he was born and raised here, but he lived in Washington. So he says, yeah, you guys getting ready to retire. Uh, Tired of the cold as well. A lot of years of it. So we came down on a 10-day vacation down in New Smyrna and stayed on the beach, and same thing. I was like, it don't get cold here. So I went home and called the realtor and said, can I put my house up for sale?
that's cool.
Yeah.
That's cool. But it does get, after you're here for a while, you'll feel the cold a little bit. But the nice thing
Yeah.
about it, a couple hours later, it's gone.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say like it's
And-
been chilly a couple times in the morning, but
Yeah.
you know, it goes away quick.
And the news thing, I mean, we moved down here going on 19 years ago from up in New England,
Mm-hmm.
and not having to shovel snow
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
and not have the ugly winters. I'm not talking about the bright sunny days when there's snow on the ground and
Mm-hmm.
you know you look at it and somebody else is plowing
Yeah.
your driveway for you.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but you know that dark, dismal.
Oh,
We
great.
we just don't
Foggy.
have that here.
Yeah.
I mean,
right.
my wife was the kind of like during the winter, every light in the house is on.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Or
down
4
here, it
o'clock
saved
on.
on electricity to begin with.
Yeah.
Plus, I was still working for a short period of time when I moved down here. By doing that, I gave myself a raise because there was no income tax.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
So it was kind of nice in all aspects of that come down.
Mhm.
So who would like to give me a little bit more background on Soul Patrol? What you're all about and that.
Yeah. So Soul Patrol Ministries founded in Spokane, Washington, in 1991. So we've got some years under us. And over the years, you know, it's grown and things have, you know, changed and things have developed, relationships have deepened, and we focused on ministering, you know, primarily to those within the motorcycle community,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and that works out really well. You know, we
Down
do,
here.
yeah, we do our absolute best, you know, to, you know, to be an example of what it looks like to walk alongside
Mhm.
Jesus, you know. But in Spokane, that's where our mother chapter is based out of, and our brothers and sisters up there are just awesome, you know, and they're out doing work on the clubhouse we have up there right now. But very active in the community up there, and that support system has really helped us be able to come down here and do what we do down here as well too. But you know, it's really cool to see. You know, we have a few chapters right now, not a ton, but you know, we focus on um, being the best that we can be, regardless if we have 3 people or 20
Mm-hmm.
people or whichever. But you know, we have a national officers team. I'm part of the national officers team. Our one of our other national officers is down in New Smyrna, and the rest are over in Washington. So we have a structure within the organization, and you know, we just do our best to get out there and share the good word. You know, and we also, like I mentioned, while we do focus on the motorcycle community, we also serve the communities that we live in as well too, right? Whether that's someone that we always say you don't have to ride a motorcycle to come to our clubhouse and hang out with us and pray with
Mm-hmm.
us and come to Bible studies. You know, we all attend different churches. A couple of us attend a Redemption Community Biker Church down in Holly Hill. We have, and I also attend a church, Life Coast Church here in Palm Coast as well
Sure.
too.
Yeah.
And then one of our other brothers attends a church down in the New Smyrna area. All of our guys in Spokane, they're all actively engaged in their churches as well too. We like to serve, you know, in one way or another. You know, some of us, I like to play music. Flash likes to get out. Just was it last week, 2 weekends ago, poured concrete at
Yeah,
you know,
church.
at a church.
Make
You
the
know, I mean,
driveway easier. So
yeah,
some
you know, so whatever we can do to get
deep
out there and
holes.
serve, and that's just here. I mean, in Spokane, with you know, they do a bunch of stuff as well too. So, but you know, most importantly is we want to connect with folks in the community, right? If there's someone that is, you know, looking at, you know, that type of brotherhood or fellowship that they may need or they may be craving right now, and they do ride a motorcycle, hey, come talk to us. We'd love to. And if not, that's cool too. Like, we'd love to learn and grow alongside.
Yep.
You know, I think I was sharing with you, we do a few different things each week at our clubhouse. We have a Bible study on Tuesday nights at 7 o'clock. And right now we're currently studying, it's called the 3 Mile Walk, and we're studying about answering the call that God puts on you, Right.
Excellent.
Yeah. And it's really cool. It's really challenged us to think differently about a few different things. We studied about, our last study was about the villain in our story, right? And how sometimes we can get wrapped up in that, but how do we recognize it? And how do we put on the armor each and every day to get up and be successful and defeat the enemy? And we hold each other accountable to that as well too. And we study that. And sometimes we have a good amount of people. Sometimes we've had times where it's just Flash and I sitting there, and you know what? That's okay. We're gonna study together,
Yeah.
and we're gonna get into God's word.
Yeah.
We do that. We do a every most Friday nights we do an open clubhouse. We'll do potlucks sometimes. We like to eat. Like most rides
Wait,
end in
yeah.
food, and so we like to do that. Every now and then we'll ride out. We'll go down. Like I think I saw you a few weeks ago down at First Friday. We'll
Yep.
ride out and do something on a Friday night, or we'll visit some other of our friends and and other
Yeah.
motorcycle organizations. And then Flash is actually starting back up his recovery group on Saturday mornings.
Well, that I'm really interested in,
Mhm.
and to hear about what's going on there. Obviously, because where you're here right now,
Mhm.
okay, the Flagler County Drug Court Foundation, we live a world of working with people in recovery,
Yeah,
and to see what's going on in our community and see what's available for people that are out there, to go and to find people that they can be accountable to.
Mhm.
Okay,
yeah, and
learn the direction, talk to people who've been there, done that, and won the T-shirt.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about what you do, how you got involved with it,
okay.
and we'll go from there.
Well, I just basically I have 37 years sober.
Excellent.
It was not easy. It's not never easy. Came from the bad alcoholic family and kind of how it started. Um, then I decided I can't do it no more, and my own parents didn't want me around. A lot of the same stories. Um, so I decided, it's time to clean up my act, and I was really determined though. I was one of them people that no matter what happened, I was gonna stay sober because it was just something I knew I had to do. And so, and went to a meeting and heard a guy said I had 20 years sober, introducing, and I said someday I'm gonna say that, and I did. I was just that motivated. So, and it went along, but like I say, it didn't. Everything wasn't roses and everything. I still had a lot of trials and things, and at the time I didn't know God. I was raised, don't go to church. All they want your money type scenarios, and that's how I lived for a lot of years. Well, I couldn't figure out what I did and got more addictions of women or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Got started marrying, and had now I have been I'm on my fifth time, and so till I stopped and realized there's a problem. I can't figure out what I needed. Well, then I had one of my wives say, "Hey, let's go to church." I said, "Oh no, can't do that." you know, and so she says, "No," and yeah, and talked me into it. I said, "Okay." Walked into the church, never left since. It was
Praise God,
amazing.
that's
I to
incredible.
that day I stood up and said, "I want Jesus in my life. That's what I'm missing." That was what I was missing the whole time and didn't know it. So as years went by and stayed in church and stayed in the recovery aspects, and it just came to the point where recently, after getting involved and going to meetings and things, and not necessarily looking to help myself, because like I said, I have it. I think I have it to where I don't. I'm not worried. I can go on these rides. We can stop at bars, whatever. It doesn't bother me. But there might be people out there that can't. And
Exactly.
so, and I thought about that, and I said, I want to start a recovery group that's, you know, not your traditional one. It's more of a discussion type. It's like, people helping people. I call it real recovery. What can we do today to help keep you clean and sober today? And that's what I'm all about. Not a week from now. I'm not worried about that. So I just want, if you have need today, let us know. And so it's just something I really know God's got it on my heart because I know how to help the people. I've had the experience, been through the trials, and I hope I can make a huge difference.
Well, it certainly sounds like you can, and I'm sure you do. And the type of meeting that you're talking about is very similar. We have one on Monday nights. It's a small group, and it's a discussion group.
Yeah.
Okay, whether we're just doing plain talking or we're in a book or whatever it is, got to lead to talking about it and
Yeah.
bringing out those things. And it is the people that come to it on a regular basis want to be there
Yeah.
because of that. They're allowed to interrupt.
Right.
Okay,
Hmm.
because we know if we don't interrupt, we'll forget what we were going to ask, and when it comes
Yeah.
down to the end,
Hmm.
so it's less formal than the traditional
Yeah,
AA,
and it's like,
NA, all
yeah,
those
and
meetings.
it's like I was talking to my wife last night. And I brought up the scenario. I said, well, and typical recoveries, like you get your sponsor and all this. I said, well, okay, so I'll play the recovering guy, and I'm calling you. I said, hey, I'm really struggling right now, and I'm thinking of going out and drinking. And then you tell me, well, I'd really like to help, but I'm on vacation. I said, well, how does? I said that's why I kind of want the untraditionalists where we all can be called or say, hey, call Bob because
Yeah.
I'm on vacation. He'll help you, type thing. And that's kind of where I'm at.
Yeah.
Sounds like a good place to be, based on what I've seen. But again, we know that the road to recovery is a different road for a lot of different people.
Hmm.
And
Yes.
like when we deal with it, particularly in the actual drug court, we give people an opportunity to find the right place for you, whether it's AA, NA, Celebrate Recovery. And our drug court says church is one of those places.
Hmm.
So you find the place that's going to be good for you. And
Yeah.
then we hope it all leads you to that end result that we're looking for, to get to that point where you can say, I'm not worried about it anymore. I know it's there.
Yes.
I tell people, I said, my only experience in addiction was I was a 2 pack a day smoker. Well, people don't understand, a lot of them don't, that nicotine is more difficult to give up than any other drug out there in the
Hmm.
market.
Hmm.
And I quit 6 times, relapsed 6 times, lied about it six
Yeah.
times. That's stupid because when you lie about quitting and you stink, everybody knows you're lying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then finally found what I needed to hang on to finally make that commitment a little over 42 years ago. And
Wow.
I know I can't do it again, but
Right.
I know I'm free of it.
Yeah. Hmm.
Yes.
And so those are the kinds of things that we hope that we can get other people that are in recovery to find what they need to hang on to
Hmm.
get to that point. And it's usually quite a while before the head gets clear enough where you can give the right thought process to
Hmm.
find out that.
Right. And that's like I say, that's where I'm kind of at as far as what can we do right now to help you?
Yep,
What do you need right now?
that's
And
fantastic.
whatever it is. I know that God's leading me to be there for people. And I don't and I it's just like all the years, and it's always been the same throughout all of them, is like call me anytime, day or night. And I
Hmm.
I stand by it.
Well, good.
Hmm.
Where and when is your meeting that you hold?
Ours at our clubhouse, 500 Court Street, Bunnell, at
500, what was it?
500 Court Street
Court Street.
in
Okay.
Bunnell, and it's at 9 a.m. on Saturday morning.
Excellent. Excellent.
Hmm.
And we'll try to do an hour or so and keep respect to people's Saturday. So
Hmm.
Yeah.
And you've got other things going on at the clubhouse too.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what's going on there?
So I mentioned the Bible studies. Those have been fantastic. I mean, those are just great. I mean, it's such great discussion, and there's something to be said for relationships,
Oh
right?
yes.
Like, I mean, when we can sit down and talk about something and learn something from one another, or from, like we use different study sessions or whatever it is, whatever tools that we can use to grow grow each other, and grow with the group that we're with, we'll do that. But there's something to be said for that connection and relationship that we have when we're sitting there learning, right? And so we put a lot of emphasis on that, and with the Bible study in particular. I can share it. I haven't had the same journey when it comes to recovery or anything. I haven't struggled with a lot of the struggles that I hear about, and I look up to people like Flash and people like yourself when you talk about what you've gone through and how you've come through it. But I can say that there was a time in my life where there was a big hole and I couldn't figure out what it was. I
Hmm.
could not figure out what it was at all. And when I met the right people and I had the right people holding me accountable, everything changed like rather drastically, and life got radical really quickly, and it hasn't slowed down either, which is pretty cool. And so, that being said, we focus on those things, when we go out to, we're on a ride or whichever, or we're at going from, sometimes bars like he was talking about,
Yep.
it's nice, we are a clean and sober club, of course, but what's nice is that, we can say no, and we don't judge someone for the decisions they make at that point, right? But fact of the matter is we say no. We order an iced tea or a soda or something like that, and our prayer is that someday we're the reason that someone takes that same
Right.
step and says no, right? So that being said, when at our clubhouse, we have our Bible studies, we have water, soda, coffee, all that kind of stuff. We do that. Friday nights, I mentioned, we get together and we just have fellowship. We're right across the street from the park in Benel. So if you have family kids, they can come over there and play if they
Oh,
want
that's
to,
cool.
But and then sometimes we get a bunch of motorcycles lined up out there, and that's pretty cool. I mentioned, I'll talk about the potlucks all day long, so I'll stop with that. But there's some nights where it's a couple of us hanging out, talking, fellowshipping and learning from one another, and sharing about what happened during our week. And there's other times where it's a lot busier. There's times where we'll have worship at the clubhouse, depending on what we have going on. We're working on putting together a game night pretty soon. We thought that that's something that a lot of families are gonna like, And again, we like to make sure that folks know, like, you don't have to ride a motorcycle to come over and,
No.
and hang out and spend good quality time with us. That, all that being said, those are the things we kind of have going on at the clubhouse. But there's 7 days in a week,
Yes, there are.
and so we're one of those groups that we're constantly looking at ways that we can continue to serve our community and share the good word. And so we're
Yes, we
always
do.
happy to explore other things that are out there. We
Mhm.
have different things that we have going on during the week. We have families and kids and all that kind of stuff, and it keeps us very busy. But we have a facility, and we just know that God's gonna continue to use us in the way that it needs to be.
Yes.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, you got to look at so many different things. When we look at the community, all communities, okay?
Hmm.
And their first impression is of a motorcycle club is what?
Yeah.
Okay. To get to see that they're not all that, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And to be involved in helping in the community
Hmm.
and doing the things that you're doing lets our community know there's not to judge.
Yes.
And it's kind of funny because I think it was last year at Bike Week time. Just
Yeah.
we'd be in the light. We always try to be the light. So uh, apparently, I was going down International Speedway. I had cut on I had a red helmet, and somebody behind me in a car or something took a picture of my cut and put it on Facebook or whatever,
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
Daytona
and
Biker
it
Week or
got like
something. Yeah.
100,000 likes. And somebody showed me.
Yeah.
I didn't even know what happened. I mean, I
Yeah.
didn't even know I was being the light.
The really cool part about that was, you get your share of people, with social media, right? you,
Yes,
you you have a voice, right? And people will use it in a lot of different ways.
for
and
sure.
and while there were some people, that expressed their views in the way that they felt comfortable, so many people were like, praise the Lord, like that is cool, that's what we should be doing, that type of stuff. And again, not saying that we're better than anybody else for wearing what we wear and riding around or anything like that, but the fact of the matter is a lot of people saw that, and that's pretty darn cool, and I could tell you that the good way outweighed the bad, and that shows that God is always at work,
Yeah.
always. So it was really cool, and yeah,
We had a
it's
lot
been
of people.
posted again too
Yeah,
before.
it
Like
was.
it
It just
shows
came
up
up again. Somebody reposted
yeah,
it.
every now and then Flash shows up in our Facebook feed, and we're like, what's going on here? Like,
I guess
so,
everybody knows it's
it's,
just, and I've had a lot of comments on, like,
hmm
seeing this too, that, they're so proud of me for wearing it out and letting people know about Jesus out in the public.
yep.
He's everywhere now.
One of the coolest things that we experience, um, and I know it doesn't just happen here in Florida, but like in Washington, or wherever our other brothers are out riding around, we'll go to a gas station, and it inspires conversation. Sometimes people have questions. They're like, what is that? What is that all about? And I love when that happens. Well, let me tell you a little bit. Can I ask you a couple questions? And sometimes the conversation goes, and sometimes it'll stop, and that's okay, right? Everybody's on their own walk. But we don't waver. in that, right? We keep moving forward and trying to be the best we can and sharing
Yeah.
what we can. But it
I,
does it's incredible the amount of conversations
oh yeah, I even
we
got
get.
I went to a baseball game and they had somebody come up and ask me to come pray with them at a
Mhm.
baseball game that I rode. And yeah, absolutely.
That's
I still
fantastic.
get a little like when I was down at First Friday, I had someone come up and say, "Can I take your picture?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And he goes, "No, the back." And I'm like, "Uh, okay." You know, it's still every now and then I'm still a little bit like, "All right, that's cool." And I'm going, almost 7 years or
Just
so. And
gonna have to remind me
sure,
before we shut this
yeah.
broadcast down, we're gonna want to have you turn around
Oh
so
Okay.
yeah,
people
yeah,
can
yeah,
see
yeah.
your
Okay.
backs. So
Yeah.
we'll get
All
there
right.
toward the end there.
Sure, sure.
Um, you've got to what you've been talking about. What sparks conversation? I mentioned once before, years and years ago, I was in the aviation business, and we were at a big air show in Lakeland, and I've always wanted to go to one of these big men's ministry meetings. I
Oh
forget the
yeah.
name of the group now. I'm
Uh,
sorry, I
can't
forget.
think of it
It
either.
was the largest one going out there at that
Yeah,
time.
I can't think of it.
Yeah.
And this gentleman came up and he's wearing a shirt for that. I said, oh, we started talking about it. I said, I've always wanted to go, but every time they have one of these, I'm working. So I've never been able to go. Well, he took his shirt off and gave it to me.
Take the shirt off his
He
back.
gave his shirt off his back. He was a pastor from down around the Naples, Florida area. So whenever I travel, my territory was the U.S. So I
Hmm.
was on an airliner once, twice a month,
Hmm.
and I'd wear that shirt. I'm not a good conversation starter,
It was.
but that shirt started the conversation.
Yeah.
What's
Yep.
that all about? And
Hmm.
then we
Yep.
could get talking about God.
That's exactly how it happens.
That it's just it's one of those things. And you mentioned that day that became that day for you. I can remember I grew up in the Jewish faith, and my wife she was born again. She was a Catholic, but had come through the born again experience, and she was going to a non-Catholic church that I would go to once, twice a year with her, being a good husband,
Hmm.
right? And I got friends with a lot of the men there, and if they had a special activity that I would go, but I didn't know they were all praying for me about that. And I felt a calling,
Hmm.
a pulling, I think, more than
Yeah.
anything else. But I couldn't answer it. There was things going on because of my family history and stuff like that. And I said, but one day, um, it was the right day.
Yeah.
I brought her to church, and the pastor had had an altar call. He turned his back and went up, I think, 2 steps to pick up some stuff. And I said to my wife, and my wife was getting up to go, and I said, I'm going with you. She said, what? She said, yeah, I'm going with you.
Mm.
And then the pastor turned around, he looked, and he jumped down those 3 steps and grabbed me and said, Michael, is this the day? I said, yes, this
Wow.
is it. And I told him right then and there, I said, you're going to have to, give me an opportunity. A lot of things going on. I can't, my commitment is to, yeah, I'm saying yes, but I don't know if I'm going to be here all the time. But that was the last time that I had to intentionally miss church.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. And I'm
Mm.
still good friends with that pastor. He lives out in Minnesota now.
Wow.
Used to get to see him about once a year now. The last year or so has been a little tough, but yeah, those are the experiences that you go through, and then and then the calling on my life, which has come into being in the world of recovery. The drug court is not based on being a religious organization; it's a judicial system. But most of the people that we work with, okay,
Hmm.
and lots of our participants find their real, true recovery in the Lord.
Yeah.
And that's always such a great feeling and
That's
great.
yeah.
It's,
That's what
it's
I
good to
found.
see it, and we go from there.
Yeah.
So we're
I think it made it a lot easier when you have Jesus in your recovery versus not, because I had both too.
yeah.
Yeah.
But again, it's got to be at a point where whoever it is it's being called to it.
Yeah.
But those of us that are involved with it have to be the example
Right.
And then hopefully what they see in us is something
They want.
they want.
Yes.
And that's the whole deal. We don't save anybody.
No.
That's the
Right,
Lord's
right.
job.
No.
Yeah.
But
just
we need
plant
to
that
we
seed.
need to show that world.
Right.
Show the difference.
Yeah. And also show that sometimes the bumps in the road happen to all of us.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
It's
no
so
matter what.
amazing when you can remember that specific day, that day
Oh.
where things changed. I can remember mine's. I can remember the message that was shared that day. I can remember the exact feeling at that moment, and it's something that will never be taken away, and that I just pray that other people get to experience in their own way, right? Because it's
Yep.
so powerful. It's just and like I mentioned earlier, life just gets radical from there. It's
It certainly
Awesome.
does.
Mm.
It certainly does. Well, gentlemen, we're coming
Yeah.
to the end of this. And again, before we get to the point where we're going to shut, I'm going to want to, and I probably have to play with the cameras a little bit once we get you, but I'd like you to turn around and let
Okay.
people see what's on the backs that we've been talking about.
Yeah.
And I'll see how, okay, now you can move a little bit to the left. There we go. That's a good one there. And then I'm going to have you move all the way to the left and Flash move where Ed was. So we get into, and we get there. Oh, that's perfect. That's beautiful. All right, gentlemen. Well, we're going to bring this to a close today. We thank you for joining us. Hope you'll be back with us again. And I certainly hope that we'll see you in October for our Ride for Recovery. And any way you can be of service to us, we'd certainly love to have that.
Yeah.
It's going to be a great day again.
We'll be there and involved.
And we're going to be far more involved. We got more people trying to come to get together to help us, even in the Jeep world that
Cool. Yeah.
we're working on. So hopefully we get there and it'll be a great. It's a good time regardless.
Yep.
It's a good time regardless.
And great food.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
One little piggy here and
Yeah.
there, and we're starting. We talked. Alan and I were talking yesterday. We got to start arranging for that pig now.
Right.
Because October comes around real quick.
Absolutely.
So, all right, guys, I'm going to get us to a close here. So stand by. Hey, everybody, Mike Feldbar from the Flagler County Drug Court Foundation, inviting you to our third annual golf tournament on May 24th at Palm Harbor Golf Club. This is our one of our annual fundraisers. Help us help those in the community in recovery. Have a great day. Good food by Loopers. Some great gifts. Some contests out there on the course. Come join us. For information, call me at 401-864-6997 or email me at mfeldbauer, Feldbauer @gmail.com. Have a great day.